Ito ang 106.3 Dance Radio. Dance Radio.
Prepare yourself.
Ang silid-aralan sa radyo, hatid namin ay makabagong paraan ng pagtuturo at kaalaman. Mapaumaga, tanghali o hapon man yan, ang istasyong magbibigay impormasyon kahit saan man.
For something big.
Alright, here we go.
106.3 Dance Radio. Doña Aurora National High School, Santa Rita, Aurora, Isabela.
This
106.3 DWDR-FM. Physics, Chemistry, Earth Science, Biology, Biochemistry, Environmental Science. These are some branches of science. Science is about a whole lot more than that. And to sum it up, we believe that science is the way of helping the brain grow in finding new knowledge and help us defeat our curiosity and how the world develops and works today. Science. This is your class, and this is science. And now, here is your host for the day.
Ayan, good morning po sa ating 10 million viewers sa ating Facebook Live na live. Ayan, lalong-lalo na sa mga sumusuporta sa atin, ma'am, patuloy na nakikinig at nanonood pa rin sa atin sa ating Facebook Live and even sa radio natin. Ayan, lalong-lalo na sa ating butihin na OIC Principal ng Chief Educator, Supervisor ng ating DepEd Isabela. Ayan, si Sir Rodrigo Pascua. At lalong-lalo na, babatiin din natin yung mga ating mga head teachers. Ayan, sa lahat ng learning area, lalong-lalo na sa ating head na si Ma'am Annabel Rodriguez. Ayan. Ayan, at sa ating mga learners dyan na patuloy na maagang nagising para lang antabayanan ng ating lesson for today, ang Science Grade 9. Ayan, Ma'am Annabel, sino pa ba yung mga makakasama natin na this day?
Okay, good morning sa lahat ng ating mga viewers and listeners. Siyempre, lalong-lalo na sa ating mga grade 9 learners. Special mention to my 9 Mendel, and 9 Darwin, and 9, ano yung isang klase yun? 9 Pasture. So ngayong umaga, makakasama natin, Ma'am Riza, ang dalawa sa mga pinaka-poging mga teachers ng Doña Aurora National High School.
Poging-pogi.
Dinedeclare niya dati, first runner-up siya. Sir Ronnie Avalos. And syempre, Sir Ronnie, baka naman mayroon tayong short greeting sa ating mga anak.
Okay. Good morning po sa ating lahat, lalong-lalo na po sa mga grade 9 learners na hinawakan ko sa 9 lansones at 9 avocado. Good morning sa ating lahat.
And of course, we have with us, second runner-up ni Sir Ronnie, Sir Ryan Colcol.
Ayan, so good morning sa ating mga viewers, lalong-lalo din at binabati ko ng magandang umaga ang aking mga anak, ang 9 Mango. And yan, so I hope na makinig sila until sa kahuli-hulian ng ating live discussion this morning.
And of course, we have our host, Ma'am Riza Marsan.
Yan, sa ating 9 Chico kanina, ma'am, nakalimutan natin batiin na maagang gumising yan para makinig at manood sa ating live discussion today.
Okay, and of course, yours truly, Mrs. Annabel Toribio.
Ayan. So for today's topic natin, ma'am, ano ba yung ating mga lesson objective?
Okay, actually, isa lang ang lesson objective
lesson
natin
objective.
this morning,
Yes.
Ma'am Riza. However, medyo mahaba-haba ito. So, may we request our learners, our dear learners, to be patient in, tuning in and being with us until we are done with this lesson today.
Yes.
So, for today's lesson objective, we have to describe certain climatic phenomena that occur in the global level.
Ayan. So, antabayanan natin sa ating mga learners, sa ating mga viewers, ang ating topic ngayong umaga kasi talagang napapanahon ito kasi nakita natin na yung klima natin this week ay talagang pabago-bago mula nung Monday hanggang ngayon. Ayan. So, bago natin ipagpatuloy ang ating live discussion, Ma'am Annabel, atin munang pakinggan ang ating RBI sa araw na to. Ayan, Sir Joshel, take it away.
Dance Radio, siniparalan sa radyo, atid namin makabago, paraan ang pagtuturo.
Wala nang makakapigil pa. Sulong Arangkada 106.3 Dance Radio sa Aurora, Isabela.
Edukasyo'y susulong, basta magtulong-tulong, sulong edukalidad. Dance Radio, learning is amazing.
Physics, chemistry, earth science, biology, biochemistry, environmental science. These are some branches of science. Science is about a whole lot more than that. And to sum it up, we believe that science is a way of helping the brain grow in finding new knowledge and help us defeat our curiosity of how the world develops and works today. Science, science, science. This is your class, and this is science. And now, here is your host for the day.
Good day, my dear grade 9 learners. You are listening to our School on the Air program. We are back for another radio lesson in science. This is your School on the Air host, Sir Rufino Arpomeda Jr., together with Sir Prince Bugawisan, our technical specialist. Learning is always amazing in our School on the Air, 106.3 DWDR FM, Dance Radio. I hope you are now prepared for today's lesson. Before we begin, may I remind you to have with you your pen, notebook, and learning activity sheets for week 3 titled Climate Change. Always remember to take down important concepts for the lesson today. I hope you are all ready to listen. This time, I turn you over to your radio teacher, Teacher Benjelu R. Paraiso.
Good day, my dear grade 9 learners. I am Teacher Benjelu, your radio teacher in science. I hope you're all doing fine. Before we start, let us have a review of our topic last week, which is about geothermal energy. From our previous topic, how can we utilize the vast amount of heat within the Earth's interior?
Ma'am, geothermal energy stored within the Earth can be generated through the use of geothermal power plants and geothermal heat pumps. In geothermal power plants, the heat inside the Earth is used to produce steam to generate electricity.
That's correct. Today, we are going to discuss about climate change. At the end of this episode, you should be able to describe certain climatic phenomena that occur in global level. What news can be usually seen on televisions and social media platforms during frequent rains?
Many areas are usually flooded, ma'am.
Yes, that's correct. What about typhoons? How would you describe them nowadays?
Typhoons are also becoming stronger, ma'am.
You are right. What do you think could be causing this phenomena?
Ma'am, I think human activities can contribute to changes in our climatic system.
Correct. But what particular activities of man can contribute to these climatic changes?
Burning fossil fuels and logging forests, ma'am.
Yes, that's right. You have just mentioned two examples of activities that add great amount of greenhouse gases to those naturally occurring in the atmosphere. All these factors contribute to an increase in greenhouse effect, global warming, and climate change. For today, we will focus on these concepts. Let us begin with greenhouse gases. In your lesson in grade 7, you have known about gases in our atmosphere, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you name some of them?
Ma'am, our atmosphere consists of nitrogen, oxygen, inactive gases like hydrogen, and other gases like water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and ozone.
Very good! All gases mentioned are naturally occurring in the atmosphere. Some of them, like water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, ozone, and nitrous oxide, act as greenhouse gases. We will continue our discussion after the short break.
What are greenhouse gases? Greenhouse gases are gases in the Earth's atmosphere that trap heat. They let sunlight pass through the atmosphere, but they prevent the heat that sunlight brings from leaving the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases got their name from the greenhouses. A greenhouse is full of windows that let in sunlight. The sunlight creates warmth. The greenhouse doesn't let that warmth escape. That's exactly how greenhouse gases act. They let sunlight pass through the atmosphere, but they prevent the heat that the sunlight brings from leaving the atmosphere. This science trivia is adapted from climatekids.nasa.gov.
And I'm back! You have just heard about the trivia regarding greenhouse gases. They trap the heat in the atmosphere but prevent this heat from leaving the atmosphere. This warming that happens when certain gases in the Earth's atmosphere trap heat is called greenhouse effect. Is this process helpful or not?
I think greenhouse gases are a good thing, ma'am. Without them, our planet would be too cold and life would not exist.
That's correct. However, human activities are adding too much of these gases to the atmosphere. This results to global warming, which occurs when there is an unusually rapid increase in the Earth's average surface temperature. Have you heard of the so-called chlorofluorocarbons or CFCs?
Yes, ma'am. They are gases that are not naturally created in the atmosphere. They damage the ozone layer and are powerful greenhouse gases.
Very good! In addition, CFCs consist of chemical compounds made up of chlorine, fluorine, and carbon. What are the sources of CFCs?
Ma'am, refrigerators and air conditioners. Aerosol sprays and fire suppression system in aircrafts also emit CFCs, ma'am.
Correct! The most common emitter of CFCs are refrigerants. When the coolant used in old refrigerators, cars, air conditioners, and other machines is not properly disposed of, it leaks CFCs into the atmosphere as liquids evaporate or penetrate the soil. Have you heard of the so-called ozone depletion?
Yes, ma'am. It's the thinning of the Earth's ozone layer in the upper atmosphere. It is caused by the release of chemical compounds containing gaseous chlorine or bromine from industry and other human activities.
Yes, that's right. From your previous lessons about the Earth's atmosphere, the ozone and ozone layer were mentioned, right?
Yes, ma'am. Ozone is a molecule composed of 3 oxygen atoms. Ozone is naturally found in the upper atmosphere.
Very good! Remember, these molecules are important in blocking UV or ultraviolet rays from the sun. But do you know how they are being destroyed?
Not so sure, ma'am.
We will discuss the answer after the short break.
What is ozone? Ozone is a gas made up of 3 oxygen atoms. It occurs naturally in small amounts in the upper atmosphere. Ozone protects life on Earth from the sun's ultraviolet radiation. 90% of the ozone in the atmosphere sits in the stratosphere. The natural level of ozone in the stratosphere is a result of a balance between sunlight that creates ozones and chemical reactions that destroy it. Ozone is created when the kind of oxygen we breathe is split apart by sunlight into single oxygen atoms. Single oxygen atoms can rejoin to make oxygen, or they can join with oxygen molecules to make ozone. Ozone is destroyed when it reacts with molecules containing nitrogen, hydrogen, chlorine, and bromine. Some of the molecules that destroy ozone occur naturally, but people have created others. The total mass of ozone in the atmosphere is about 3 billion metric tons. They may seem like a lot, but it is only 0.00006% of the atmosphere. This trivia is adopted from National Aeronautics Space Administration.
And I'm back! Let us now discuss how ozone depletion occurs. But before that, how are ozone molecules formed? Do you have any idea?
Ma'am, based from what I heard earlier, ozone is created when a molecule of oxygen consisting of 2 atoms and written as O2 is split apart by sunlight into single oxygen atoms. Single oxygen atoms can be joined to make O2, or they can join with O2 molecules to make ozone or O3.
Wow! You're very attentive! In addition, the action of sunlight is very important both on how ozone molecules are formed and destroyed. So how about its destruction? How does it happen?
They are naturally broken down in the stratosphere by sunlight and biochemical reaction with various compounds containing nitrogen, hydrogen, and chlorine. Chlorofluorocarbon or CFC gases are powerful greenhouse gases and can lead to ozone depletion.
Yes, that's right. CFCs have a lifetime of about 20 to 100 years. And consequently, one free chlorine atom from a CFC molecule can do a lot of damage, destroying ozone molecules for a long time. After knowing how ozone depletion occurs, let us now look into its effects. Can you give any impact of ozone depletion on Earth?
Ma'am, destruction of the ozone layer increases the amount of ultraviolet or UV radiation that reaches the Earth's surface. This increases the rate of skin cancer, eye cataracts, and genetic and immune system damage.
Exactly right! In addition, ozone depletion itself can influence the global climate. In our discussion earlier, we have mentioned about global warming. You might also be thinking of climate change when we talk about global warming. Do you think they are synonymous?
No, ma'am. Climate change encompasses not only rising average temperatures, but also extreme weather events, shifting wildlife populations and habitats, rising seas, and a range of other impacts.
You got it right! Before we move further, let us pause for a short break.
What are trade winds? Trade winds are winds that reliably blow east to west just north and south of the equator. The winds help ships travel west, and they can also steer storms such as hurricanes too. However, many winds on Earth are quite predictable. For example, high in the atmosphere, the jet streams typically blow across Earth from west to east. The trade winds are air currents closer to Earth's surface that blow from east to west near the equator. The trade winds have been used by sailors for centuries. Sailors traveling from Europe or Asia use the trade winds to travel to North or South America. Just like airplanes can use the wind boost from the jet stream to shorten a journey flying east, sailors can use the trade winds to shorten a sea journey when sailing west. This trivia is adopted from scientjinx.gov/trade-winds.
I'm back! This time, we will look into some of the extreme weather events that we are experiencing. Before that, may I ask you to listen to this news posted last February 9, 2021 by the World Meteorological Organization or WMO. Are you ready? Here is its content. The 2020-2021 La Nina event has passed its peak, but its impact on temperatures, precipitation, and storm patterns continue. This is according to a new update from the World Meteorological Organization or WMO. Despite the general cooling influence of La Nina events, land temperatures are expected to be above normal for most parts of the globe in February to April 2021. La Nina appears to have peaked in October to November as a moderate strength event. There is a 65% likelihood that it will persist during February to April, with a 70% chance that the tropical Pacific will return to neutral conditions by April to June 2021 season, according to WMO's El Niño-La Niña update. La Niña refers to the large-scale cooling of the ocean surface temperatures in the central and eastern equatorial Pacific Ocean, coupled with changes in the tropical atmospheric circulation, namely winds, pressure, and rainfall. It usually has the opposite impacts on weather and climate as El Niño, which is the warm phase of the so-called El Niño Southern Oscillation. El Niño and La Niña are major drivers of the Earth's climate system, but all are naturally occurring climate events now take place in the context of human-induced climate change, which is increasing global temperatures, extreme weather, impacting seasonal rainfall patterns, and complicating disaster prevention and management, said WMO Secretary General Professor Petteri Talas. That's the news from WMO. So what is it about?
Ma'am, it talks about an update of La Nina and El Nino.
You're right. Are you aware that we are in a period of La Nina starting 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
So, what are these events about?
Ma'am, La Nina is the large-scale cooling of the ocean surface temperatures in the central and eastern equatorial Pacific. It usually has the opposite impacts on the weather and climate as El Nino, which is the warm phase of the so-called El Nino Southern Oscillation.
Yes, that's correct. El Nino and La Nina are climate patterns in the Pacific Ocean that can affect weather worldwide. La Nina has a temporary global cooling effect, but this was not enough to prevent 2020 from being one of the 3 warmest years on record. How can we be affected by this phenomenon?
Ma'am, El Nino and La Nina alternately warm and cool large areas of the tropical Pacific, which significantly influences where and how much it rains there. Therefore, they can affect our weather, ma'am.
Right! In order to understand the development of El Nino and La Nina, it is important to be familiar with non-El Nino conditions in the Pacific Ocean. Let us begin with trade winds. During normal years, where is the direction of trade winds?
Normally, ma'am, strong trade winds blow westward across the tropical Pacific. These winds push warm surface water towards the western Pacific where it borders Asia and Australia.
Yes, so what will be its consequence?
Ma'am, the warm water blown will be replaced by cold water rising from the depths in a process called upwelling. This brings more nutrients to the surface, which are important to fish populations and other marine life. The upwelling process also influences global climate. The warm ocean temperature in the Western Pacific contributes to increased rainfall around the islands of Indonesia and New Guinea. The air influenced by the cool Eastern Pacific along the coast of South America remains relatively dry.
What about during an El Nino event?
Ma'am, during an El Nino event, westward blowing trade winds weaken along the equator. As a consequence, warm surface water moved eastward from the western Pacific to the coast of northern South America. This thick layer warm water does not allow normal upwelling to occur. This can lead to the death or migration of fish populations and can have a negative impact on Ecuadorian and Peruvian economies.
Very good. Aside from its impact on the economy, what other impacts can El Nino bring?
El Nino also produces widespread changes in the climate, ma'am. Warmer surface waters bring increased precipitation. Rainfall increases in Ecuador and northern Peru, contributing to coastal flooding and erosion.
Yes, that's right. As El Nino brings rain to South America, it brings droughts to Indonesia and Australia and other portions of Southeast Asia. These droughts threaten the region's water supplies. Agriculture, which depends on water for irrigation, is also threatened. What about during a La Nina event? What does usually happen?
Ma'am, during La Nina, the trade winds across the entire tropical Pacific are stronger than usual, and most of the tropical Pacific Ocean is cooler than average. This contributes to increased rainfall in Southeast Asia, which tends to be greater than normal, especially in Northwest India and Bangladesh. Drier than normal conditions are observed along the west coast of tropical South America and the Gulf Coast of United States, ma'am.
Correct. But do we benefit from La Nina events?
This generally benefits the Indian economy and other areas in the Western Pacific, which depends on rainfall for agriculture and industry, ma'am. It usually has a positive impact on the fishing industry of Western South America because of more upwelling of cold, nutrient-rich water. However, strong La Nina events are associated with catastrophic floods in the northern Australia, ma'am.
You're right. This time, we will answer Activity 1 of your learning activity sheets. Turn to page 3. Here, you are going to use the words in the box to complete the sentences given. Number 1. Blank refers to the gradual rise in the Earth's temperature as a result of human activities. Look for the correct word now inside the box.
The correct answer is global warming, ma'am.
Very good. Let's have number 2. Blank is a glass building used to grow plants. It keeps the plants warm and protect them from bad weather.
It's greenhouse, ma'am.
You are correct. For the remaining items, you may answer them after this airing, including the rest of the activities in your learning activity sheets. We're almost done. Again, what are the different global atmospheric problems we have discussed?
Ma'am, we discussed about global warming, climate change, and ozone depletion, and events like El Nino and La Nina.
Yes, we also described each of these problems, their causes, and impacts. Before we end, I want you to reflect on this statement from the famous actor and environmentalist Leonardo DiCaprio. It goes this way. Global warming is not only the number one environmental challenge we face today, but one of the most important issues facing all humanity. We all have to do our part to raise awareness about global warming and the problems we as people face in promoting a sustainable environmental future for our planet. That ends our lesson. This is your radio teacher, Teacher Benjalu Paraiso. Back to our host.
I'm back! Thank you, Teacher Benjalu. So today's lesson has just given us a challenging reminder. It is important to note that because the primary cause of recent global atmospheric problems is human, the solutions are also within the human domain. Before we end the session today, I would like to acknowledge the teachers behind this School on the Air lesson. Teacher Benjalu R. Paraiso, your radio teacher on the air. Teacher Annabel M. Toribio, the script writer. Teacher Vicente S. Rodriguez and Ma'am Annabel A. Rodriguez, the editors. And Teacher Prince C. Bugawisan, our technical specialist. I am Teacher Rufino R. Pomeda Jr., your host. Thank you very much for tuning in and for patiently staying with us. Have an amazing day!
Physics, chemistry, earth science, biology, biochemistry, environmental science. These are some branches of science. Science is about a whole lot more than that. And to sum it up, we believe that science is a way of helping the brain grow in finding new knowledge and help us defeat our curiosity of how the world develops and works today. Science, science, science. This is your class, and this is science.
Dance Radio, siniparalan sa radyo, atid namin makabago, paraan ang pagtuturo.
Wala nang makakapigil pa. Sulong Arangkada 106.3 Dance Radio sa Aurora, Isabela.
Edukasyo'y susulong, basta na magtulong-tulong, sulong edukalidad. Dance Radio, learning is amazing.
Ayan, and we're back. Ayan, mula sa ating RBI lesson na napakaganda. Ayan. So, before we formally begin our lesson, Ma'am Annabel, meron lang tayong gustong i-remind sa ating mga bata na kahit na nasa level 1 na tayo mga anak, ay patuloy pa rin nating sundin ang ating mga health protocol, social distancing, wear your face mask, paghuhugas ng kamay, lalo na pagkakain at saka kung ano man ang nahawakan at lalong-lalo na kapag kagaling sa labas. Ayan. So, this time, may we ask our learners to describe some scenario, Ma'am Annabel? Meron na yata tayong PowerPoint dyan, Sir Ryan. In each picture, in the next slides. Ayan.
Okay, so we would like to remind also our learners na pwede nating ikiin ang ating mga possible na sagot for each scenario in the pictures that will be shown to you later. Okay?
Ayan. First picture, ayan.
Ikaw, Ma'am Risa, ano napapansin mo dyan sa unang picture?
Ayan, para sa mga nakikinig sa ating radio, Ma'am, i-describe lang natin. Meron isang lugar na tuyo ang...
Parang bukid dyan, Ma'am Risa.
Parang bukid na tuyo yung lupa.
Bitak-bitak actually.
Bitak-bitak, ayan.
Sa Ilocano, ano ba yung tawag sa ganyan, Ma'am Risa?
Yung mga lupa na Di ko nada nga ikit agbing kulin. Ma'am.
Sobrang tigas na kasi ng
Yes,
lupa.
yung matigas na yung lupa na kapag summer, ayan,
Yes.
di ba pwede na natin siyang pambato sa ating mga mangga. Ayan.
Kabataan natin, di ba?
Yes, ma'am. Na meron siyang kasamang isang magsasaka yata.
Yes.
And isang kalabaw.
Na halos wala na yatang makain kasi
Yes,
dry na,
yung lupa.
Tingnan nga natin, Sir Ryan, kung saan lugar ito.
Ayan, sa ating mga learners.
Okay, so ito ay isang magsasaka. Ang pangalan niya ay hindi ko makita. Sir, Mr. Agasser, sinusurvey niya, tinitingnan niya yung bukid. Ito ay makikita sa ito ay nakunan sa Nagilian, Isabela Province. Actually, yung mga pictures na makikita natin mamaya, Ma'am Riza, ay nakuhanan lang sa Isabela. Okay, tingnan natin susunod, Sir Ryan.
And ayan, dalawang picture, ma'am, sa left side, parang bukirin din ulit.
O sa right naman meron tayong parang patay na mga isda.
Patay na mga isda na parang sa malapit sa ilog ba yan, ma'am, or saan kaya ito? Saan matatagpuan tong picture na to?
Tingnan natin, Sir Ryan, susunod. Yung mga learners natin, pwede tayong magbigay din ng ating mga descriptions sa nakikita natin sa mga pictures na ipinapakita at dinidescribe ni Ma'am Riza. So ito ay isang kalabaw na ang tawag dito nandun sa isang bitak-bitak din na lupa sa matatagpuan ito sa isang lugar, Jones, Isabela.
Dry pond pala, kala ko
ay,
pala
dry
yan.
pond.
Palayan siya, ma'am.
Na tuyong-tuyo, pero it's a dry pond.
Dry pond pala siya. Nawalan ng tubig.
Okay, next, Sir Ryan, tingnan natin. Ayan. Ito naman makikita natin sa Ramon, Isabela, yung mga pumupunta sa ating Magat Dam.
Yes, sa mga estudyante natin na nagbabike during Saturday and Sunday na papunta ng mga Ramon, mag-ingat tayo mga anak ko.
And pasadahan na natin yung mga susunod, sir. Next na tayo. Ayan. Ito naman kaya, anong pinapakita natin, mga learners natin? Ano yung nandito sa picture natin?
Ayan, so kung i-describe natin yan, ma'am, parang nasa bay siya sa gilid ng bay.
Bay. Okay.
Ayan, na merong mga malakas na alon at pati
malakas na
hangin.
Kasi kitang-kita yan sa dahon nung
Yes, dahon ng punong niyog.
Okay, ito ay actually nakuhanan noong 2013. During the Typhoon Haiyan, or yung mas sa atin sa Pilipinas, tinawag siyang Yolanda.
Yes.
Okay, this happened in November 2013. Okay.
So, sa mga naipakita nating mga pictures, Ma'am Annabel, at saka sa ating mga estudyante, what concept comes into your mind by simply looking into the pictures shown earlier, yung bitak na lupa, yung malakas na hangin,
bagyo,
yung mga namatay na mga isda, ayan.
Ano kaya yung mga ini-indicate ng mga pictures na yon? Hintayin lang natin, baka may sasagot sa ating mga learners, Sir Ryan and Sir Ronnie. Ano kaya yung, ang tawag dito, ano kaya yung mga pinapahiwatig ba? Sa Tagalog yon, nung mga pictures na ipinakita kanina.
Yan, parang may sumagot na, Ma'am Annabel.
Yes, ma'am. According to Glaciers Salvador, ayan, typhoon daw. Ayan. Yes, ma'am.
Sa Angela Pineda naman, sabi niya, climate change.
Climate change. Anong sections ng mga to, Sir Ronnie and Sir Ryan?
Sa Angela Pineda is from 9 Darwin.
Yan, si Glaisa naman, ma'am, is from 9 SPJ.
Okay, thank you so much sa mga estudyante natin na nagpa-participate dyan.
And also
si Cyrene Santiago,
yes, meron.
sabi niya, climate change.
Climate change.
Si Melanie sa 9 Mendel, climate change din.
Okay, thank you so much. So kung ako lang din, Ma'am Riza, Sir Ryan and Sir Ronnie, ang sasagot doon sa kung nakita ko yung mga pictures na yon, ito ay nagpapakita ng pagtaas ng temperature na later on nagiging sanhi ng, ang tawag dito, ng pagkasira ng mga pagtaas ng temperature, na pagkasira ng ng mga crops natin,
Yes.
pagbaba ng level ng tubig. Halimbawa kanina sa Magat Dam, na siyang dahilan kung bakit din namatay yung mga isda. Okay, heating ng water din doon. And syempre yung typhoon indicates also warming of ocean water, kaya tayo nagkakaroon ng bagyo. And of course, lahat ng mga ito, ang consequence nito ay, ito ay mga consequences ng tinatawag nating climate change. So tama yung mga sinabi ng ating mga learners sa ating mga comment box. So, I could also think of global warming and climate change, ma'am. So, yan na yung mga sagot ng ating mga estudyante kanina. Okay. So, as mentioned earlier, ang lesson objective natin ngayong araw ay to describe certain climatic phenomena that occur in the global level. So, what do you think are the different climatic phenomena, Ma'am Risa, that we experience globally nowadays?
Ayan, so meron tayong tinatawag na strong typhoon, hindi lang yung mga normal na typhoons natin na nararamdaman ng ating mga kabataan. Ayan.
Nung grade 6 ako, Ma'am Risa, ang natatandaan ko, pinakamalakas na bagyo lang noon, signal number 3.
Yes. Ako din, mga grade 7 ako nun, ma'am. Hanggang signal number 3 lang ang pinakamalakas na naranasan ko nun. But ngayon, meron na tayong signal number 4 and the super typhoon talaga na mas malakas pa doon sa...
Kaya umaabot na siya ng 200 something kilometer per hour yung speed ng hangin.
And also droughts, yung mga tagtuyot talaga, ma'am, na halos namamatay na yung mga crops natin. And we also floods na hindi lang lampas tuhod, kundi minsan lampas tao na rin.
Hindi lang lampas tao, kahit mga kabahayan nga.
Lampas bahay, ayan, at mga lampas puno. And also, the global warming. And we also experience, Ma'am Annabel, that La Nina and El Nino. So, this can be associated to a global problem called the climate change.
Na siyang focus ng ating lesson ngayong araw. So, may we now have Sir Ronnie Abalos and Sir Ryan to give us more about the topic today.
Okay, thank you Ma'am Risa and Ma'am Annabel. Earlier in the radio lesson, you have heard about the difference between global warming and climate change. So, nung kanina sa radio lesson natin, so, ang tanong, how do they differ? Ano bang pagkakaiba, Sir Ryan, ng global warming at ng climate change?
Oh yes sir. So meron ngang pagkakaiba itong dalawang term na ito. So pag global warming kasi Sir Ronnie, it occurs when there is an unusually rapid increase in the Earth's average surface temperature. And pag climate change naman, it encompasses not only rising average temperatures but also extreme events, ayan, weather events, shifting wildlife populations and habitats, rising seas and other impacts. Ayan, so Sir Ronnie, ano nga ba yung mga extreme weather events na to? Magbigay ka nga ng mga example, sir.
Okay, so yung mga extreme events na naranasan natin ngayon, yung tagtuyo or droughts na sinasabi natin, the floods na diniscuss ni Ma'am, na sinabi ni Ma'am Risa kanina na hindi lang basta lampas tao, kundi lampas bahay na, at yung strong typhoon sa sinabi ni Ma'am Annabel na nung bata daw siya, hanggang signal number 3, nung mga 1986 siguro yun. So, Sir Ryan, ano ba?
1986
Sir Ryan, ano ba? May alam ka ba tungkol sa mga traditional beliefs ng ating mga indigenous people o tungkol sa ating topic ngayon?
Okay, yes sir. So itong mga native people natin or indigenous people, they have reacted to external interventions and kung ano yung mga changes na nangyayari sa kanilang yung way of living nila because of this climate change. So in recent years, sir, these indigenous peoples have faced encroachment of their lands through logging and mining activities and the arrival of migrants looking for arable lands. And beyond the experience of extended drought or excessive rainfall, there are few references in indigenous knowledge systems about awareness of long-term variability in temperature or rainfall. So, kagaya nga nun, sir, nagbabago din or nag-a-adapt sila yung sa way of farming nila and nag-shift na din sila ng sa agriculture, yung mga crops or na tinatanong.
Yes, kumbaga nag-a-adjust na rin sila sa naranasan nating climate change ngayon, Sir Ryan.
Yes, sir.
So, Ma'am Risa?
Ayan, so right now, sir, what are the evidences that can show us our climate is really changing? Ano yung mga ebidensya natin na talagang may pabago-bagong panahon ngayon?
Okay, tingnan natin. Kung hindi ako nagkakamali, meron tayong 4 dito on the list. We have rising temperatures and rising sea levels. Yan yung dalawang una natin. Tingnan nga natin yung mga susunod na slides, Sir Ryan. So ano nga ba ang dahilan kung bakit tumataas yung sea level natin? Okay, tingnan natin. meron tayong mga examples din mamaya. Sabi rito, global warming is causing a global mean sea level or is causing global mean sea level to rise in two ways. First, glaciers and ice sheets. Wala tayo ng mga to kasi mainit sa Pilipinas, tropical tayo, but other countries may experience this, okay? Glaciers and ice sheets worldwide are melting and adding water to the ocean. Siyempre, pag natunaw yan, magiging sanhi yan ng pagtaas ng water level sa dagat. Second is, the volume of the ocean is expanding as the water warms. Chemistry, tama ba ako? So
Yes.
when there is increase in temperature, there is also, ang tawag doon, expansion of an object mostly. Kahit water also expands when
Yung mga
heated.
water molecules
Yes.
natin.
Okay, so we have here an example, Sir Ryan, applying this rising of sea level. We have here Sitio Pariahan. Here, this one is a coastal village in the Philippines, which is located 17 kilometers north of Manila, and is sinking about 4 centimeters or about 1.5 inches every year. So, rising sea levels caused by global warming could soon make this village unlivable. So, dati yan, isla.
Yes.
So, Ma'am Riza, ang isla, di ba, may lupa yan.
Yes, may lupa
yan.
na napapaligiran
Napapaligutan
ng tubig.
Pero ngayon, yung Sitio Pariahan na yan, buong tubig na yan. Kumbaga, parang yung buong sitio
Malapit
na yan.
na siyang mag-sink.
Yes, in the
kumbaga.
future, we could no longer see this sitio in the map. Perhaps, ano? Kasi nga, nakikita natin dyan, 1.5 inches every year yung pagtaas
Every
ng tubig
year.
dito.
So kapag ka 10 years, yan,
Hindi, baka
may-
wala na. So,
Oo,
these people
gatuhod na.
staying there must have to go to other places na hindi na anuhan ng tubig. Hindi, ang tawag doon? Ayun na yun.
Mas mataas na lugar.
Mas mataas, yes. They have to
Yes.
adapt to this changing environment. Next one. Okay. Melting of ice, Sir Ronnie and Sir Ryan.
Okay, yes ma'am. So ito ngayong isang evidence is yung melting of ice. So alam naman natin ma'am na ayan. So nakikita natin sa picture ang polar bear. So 2020 study published in Nature Climate Change found that polar bears could be extinct by 2100s if Arctic ice continues to melt at projected rates. Kasi ngayon yung global warming nag-exit na yung normal
Yes.
So sobra na din. Ang nangyayari is yung mga glaciers natin and ice na tinitirahan ng mga polar bears ay namimel. Kaya pwede ang posibleng mangyari ay mag-extinct sila or kumonti yung kanilang population nila. Yan. So, polar bears rely on sea ice for hunting seals. Alam naman natin yan. So, nandun yung source of food nila, ma'am? And then, sea ice continues to vanish due to warming temperatures. Polar bears are increasingly struggling to find the food they need to survive. Ayan. So, while the bears can fast for a month, their survival depends on how much energy they manage to reserve through eating ahead of time, the energy they expend during the fast, and how long as fasting periods last, the study said. Ayan, so kawawa naman yung ating mga polar bears. Ayan, Sir Ronnie?
Okay. So, yan yung map ng Greenland and the Arctic ice sheets are the largest contributors of the global level rise. So, next slide, Sir Ryan. So, what happens when glaciers melt? So, anong nangyayari kapag natutunaw yon? So, melting glaciers add to the rising sea levels, which in turn increases coastal erosion and elevates storm surge as warming air and ocean temperatures create more frequent and intense coastal storms like hurricanes, typhoons. Alarmingly, if all ice on Greenland melted, it would raise global sea levels by 20 feet. Masyadong mataas yan, ma'am, kung tutusin natin. Kaya possible talaga yung sinasabi ni Ma'am Annabel na merong isang lugar sa mapa o sa mundong ito na
Marami yan, Sir Ron.
yes, hindi lang isa, maraming lugar sa mundong ito na hindi na siya pwedeng tirahan dahil
Lulubog na siya sa tubig.
yes, malulubog siya sa tubig. So, Ma'am Risa?
Ayan, so sa lahat ng mga evidences na binanggit natin, the rising average temperature is a contributory factor. So, what could be the cause of this? Ano kayong mga dahilan? Bakit yung ating pagtaas ng ating temperatura ay talaga naman na nagko-contribute sa mga ito. Ayan. Sa ating mga estudyante dyan, ano kaya yung dahilan? Ayan. What could be the cause of this, yung rising of temperature natin?
Okay, so we could clearly explain that by knowing about the phenomenon called greenhouse effect. So ano ba yung greenhouse effect? Greenhouse effect is a natural process in which certain gases in the atmosphere keep heat near the earth and prevent it from radiating into the space. Tanda natin, itong greenhouse effect, natural yan. So, ibig sabihin, kailangan talaga ng mundo natin to survive.
Tsaka na-produce siya naturally.
Pero, para maintindihan natin lalo yan, Ma'am Risa, paki-describe nga kung ano yung greenhouse na tinatawag.
Ayan, so makikita natin dyan sa picture. Ayan, nakikita ba ng ating mga bata yung picture natin dyan that
It's a greenhouse actually, Ma'am
Yes,
Risa.
it's a greenhouse. So, tanungin nga natin yung mga estudyante natin kung ano yung kanilang pwedeng i-describe kung ano tong mga nakikita natin dito.
O ano kaya, ano ang bumubuo sa isang greenhouse kaya? Okay, may we ask our learners to please key in their possible answers for this. Ano kaya ang composition ng isang greenhouse? Would you mind to describe a greenhouse? What makes up a greenhouse?
Yan, parang bahay siya na...
Nakikita ko yung greenhouse na yan pag nanonood yung baby ko ng Peppa Pig. Kasi doon sila nagtatanim kasi nasa London or European setting yata yung Peppa Pig.
Usually kasi itong mga greenhouses sa mga malalamig.
Yes, malalamig na lugar.
Okay, may we have our, yung mga estudyante ko from 9 Darwin, 9 Mendel, and 9 Pasture.
Ayan, sa mga 9 Chico, sa mga 9 Lanzones dyan, SPJ and
your
SPA.
answers now. What makes up a greenhouse?
Yan. So, nakikita naman natin dyan sa picture, ma'am, na parang may bahay.
Yes, base sa nakikita natin sa picture sa mga naka-live sa Facebook.
Pero,
what makes up a greenhouse?
Pero ano kaya yung bumubuo sa bahay na yan? Yan ba
Gaya kaya ng concrete na...
Nakikita ko parang, pero siguro hindi plastic yan. Maaaring salamin. Glass.
And medyo pinag-iisipan yata natin mga estudyante ang ating nakikita nilang picture
ng isang greenhouse.
Yes.
Okay, siguro baka mamaya may pahabol tong mga estudyante natin regarding their answers about this. So siguro, Ma'am Risa, we can proceed, no? And then we will just read comments later on if there would be some of our learners.
Sabi ni Abigail de la Cruz ng 9 Darwin, transparent glass windows.
Transparent glass windows. One answer, Ma'am Risa. Meron pa ba, Sir Ryan?
I think wala na, ma'am.
Wala
Ayan.
na?
Yes, baka mamaya na magpapahabol na lang sila mamaya.
Magpapahabol na siguro. Okay.
At medyo delay tayo sa...
Yes, thank you, Abigail from 9 Darwin.
Ayan, so, a greenhouse is a building with glass walls. Ayan, tama
Balik muna natin yun, Sir Ryan.
Tama yung ating learner kanina. And a glass roof. Ayan. So, hindi pala siya plastic, Sir Ronnie. Glass pala siya. And greenhouse are used to grow plants. A greenhouse stays warm inside even during the winter. So, parang tulad nga ng sabi ni Sir Ronnie kanina na nakikita niya ito sa mga malalamig na lugar. Para yung greenhouse, pinapanatili niya yung init sa loob during winter. Ayan. In the daytime naman, sunlight shines into the greenhouse and warms the plant and air inside. At nighttime, it's colder outside. So, mas malamig na ngayon sa labas kapag gabi na. But the greenhouse stay pretty warm inside.
Kaya ibig sabihin nito, hindi magpo-freeze yung mga halaman na nandun.
Yes. Kahit na malamig sa paligid nila, sa labas ng greenhouse na to, warm pa rin sa inside. That's because the glass wall of the greenhouse trap the sun's heat, Ma'am Annabelle. Ayan. So, natratrap ng greenhouse yung mga heat na ibigay sa kanya during daytime.
Okay. So, Sir Ryan, ano kaya itong mga greenhouse gases na meron tayo sa atmosphere?
Oh, yes, ma'am. So, greenhouse gases include yung methane, ma'am. Nitrous oxide, ozone, water vapor, and carbon dioxide. So, these gases trap heat causing greenhouse effect.
Actually, yung mga nabanggit kanina na Sir Ryan, some of those greenhouse gases are natural, but some are human-induced. Okay? So makikita natin yung effect ng mga yan mamaya. And then we also have human activities that could impact changes on global warming. Ito yung mga nagagawa ng tao na maaring maging dahilan ng lalong pagtaas ng ating global temperature. This includes the following, nakikita natin dyan sa slide natin. Yung unang-una, burning of fossil fuels. When we burn fossil fuels to power our lives, carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere. Not necessarily yung fossil fuel sinusunog natin gamit ng posporo, no? So for example, our transportation, mga sasakyan na ginagamit natin makes use of fossil fuels. When fossil fuels, like for example, diesel, gasoline like that, is being burned, okay? Pag pinaandar natin yung makina ng sasakyan, they could actually release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which could add to the normal amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere.
Yes,
So,
being produced naturally sana.
Oo, yung natural na amount sana ng carbon dioxide sa atmosphere natin nadadagdagan.
Yes.
That's why nagkakaroon tayo ng increase sa heat or global temperature. May we have also the next, sir. Deforestation not only eliminates a natural sink but releases carbon into the atmosphere. Alam natin ang kagubatan, it's called carbon sink. Why? Kasi nag-absorb yan ng carbon dioxide, which is being used by the trees and all the plants there in the process of photosynthesis. However, kapag pinutol natin yung mga puno na yan, wala nang mag-absorb sa carbon dioxide that is being released, and therefore, dumidiretso yan sa atmosphere natin, adding again to the normal amount of carbon dioxide, which leads into more warming in our planet. So marami tayong activities actually na kahirap iwasan na maaaring maging dahilan ng pagtaas ng ating global temperature. Okay,
Yes.
Sir Ronnie?
Yes, ma'am. In connection to human activities that can negatively affect life on Earth, here's another problem, ma'am, that affects the global climate. It's about the ozone depletion. Malaking problema talaga ito, ma'am, kasi alam natin kung gaano kahalaga ang ozone layer sa survival ng mga living organisms here on Earth. This time, we will see how what is ozone depletion muna. Ozone depletion occurs when chlorofluorocarbons and halons, or formerly found in aerosol spray cans and refrigerants, are released into the atmosphere and destroys ozone molecules. Pero may magandang balita, Ma'am Annabel. Sabi ng mga scientists, yung past 2 years daw, magmula ng 2020, kailan ba tayo nag-lockdown? 2020, 2021, 2022, medyo nag-heal na raw yung ozone layer natin. Kasi nga, lockdown, walang gumagamit ng sasakyan, walang nagsusunog. So, unti-unti siyang gumagaling. So this time, we will see how humans contribute to the destruction of ozone layer. So, paano nga ba ito nangyayari? Pero bago yan, tignan natin muna kung ano ang nagagawa ng ozone layer. Sir Ryan.
Yes, sir. So, ang ozone nga or O3 is highly reactive gas whose molecules are comprised of 3 oxygen atoms. So, the ozone in the ozone layer absorbs 97 to 99% of all the ultraviolet light that passes into the stratosphere. So, ibig sabihin, ma'am, kung ang ozone layer natin is manipis na, and then eventually, ang tendency na yung mga tao o yung sa lugar na katapat ng ozone layer na manipis, is pwede rin silang magkaroon ng mga skin cancer or skin disease. Ayan, so napaka-importante ang ating ozone layer. Ayan.
Yes. So, Ma'am Annabel, merong...
So makikita natin dito yung CFC molecule. CFC molecule is a greenhouse gas also, right?
Yes.
Okay, ito ay merong, kaya sa tinawag na CFC, it comprises of carbon, fluorine, and chlorine. Kaya CFC, yan yung component niya. And you can see there in the right side, yung light coming from the sun could break down a chlorine atom from the CFC molecule na ipapaliwanag ni Sir Ronnie mamaya kung paano nga ba nasisira ng isa lang na CFC molecule ang isang ozone or ozone molecules na meron tayo sa ating stratosphere. So Ronnie.
Okay. So, tandaan muna natin dun sa kung napag-aralan po natin sa grade 9 natin, tapos naman lang chemistry, tapos lang nila nung last quarter, na napaka-reactive ng chlorine, fluorine, yan mga yan. Mga nasa group 7A, napaka-reactive nila. So, basta dumikit lang sila sa isang molecule, nagre-react kaagad. So, tingnan natin. CFCs from air conditioners, aerosol spray cans, and industrial cleaning products are capable of breaking apart ozone molecules, causing the breakdown of ozone into the stratosphere that happens faster than it can be built back up. Ito yung pinakamahirap. Madaling masira, pero
Mahirap i-repair.
mahirap i-repair.
Parang relasyon lang yan.
It takes time.
Okay, tingnan natin.
Takes time to heal.
This is the first step. The UV radiation hits CFC molecules. So, yun, number 1 yan. Saan nagaling mga CFC ulit natin? Sa mga aerosol spray, yan, refrigerants. Then, after that one, chlorine atoms break away. Once na, natanggal.
Yung chlorine.
Yes, the chlorine atom breaks away. Then, number 3 tayo. Chlorine atoms, pag naalis na yung chlorine atoms kaagad, magkikireact or didikit siya sa ozone molecule. Tandaan po natin, reactive po yan. Ang formula po ng ozone layer natin ay O3. Pag nag-react ngayon yan, itong chlorine sa number 4, ang tendency niya, kukuha siya ng isang
Oxygen atom.
Isang oxygen, Sir Ryan. Tama?
Yes, sir.
So, yung oxygen na yan. So, ano mangyayari sa O3, Sir Ryan?
Actually, sir, magiging O2 na lang siya, ano?
Okay, magiging O2 na lang siya. Oxygen, molecule. At chlorine, ano po yung nabuo niya? Chlorine.
ClO na siya.
Chlorine monoxide. So, yung pag-react niya, may dalawa na buo. Oxygen molecule at chlorine monoxide.
Tandaan natin sa Ronnie, singit lang ako, ang oxygen molecule, hindi siya nakaka-trap ng heat kagaya ng O3.
Yes.
Okay.
Hindi siya, magkaiba ang O3 sa O2. Ginagamit natin sa
when we breathe in, okay, that's
for respiration natin kailangan natin. Then after that one, oxygen atom hits chlorine monoxide molecules. Then, yun na, to oxygen atoms form oxygen molecule, chlorine atoms is free and repeats the depletion process. So, ibig sabihin, ma'am, paulit-ulit lang yun nangyayari.
Parang sa relasyon na naman yan, Sir Ronnie. Ang chlorine ay mapanira. Madami siyang nasisirang mga relasyon.
One chlorine
Daming
atom.
hugot,
Ito, tanda natin, Ma'am Annabel.
O, tingnan mo
One
kaya.
chlorine atom can destroy 100,000 ozone molecules.
Can you imagine that?
Ganon siya kalakas.
Isa lang yon. Ayan. So, napaka-overwhelming nung number na yon, sir. Plus, CFCs have a lifespan of about 20 to 100 years. And constantly, one free chlorine from a CFC's molecule can do a lot of damage. So, isa pa lang talaga is 100,000 na ozone yung molecule yung kanyang nasisira.
Yes, ma'am. May nabasa nga ako nagbabasa ako sa ozone layer. Pag pinagtabi-tabi daw yung butas ng ozone layer, kasing laki daw siya ng North America.
So,
North America, pang ilan ba yan sa pinakamalalaking countries sa buong mundo? Continent, yeah. I'm sorry, continent. Nalipat ako.
Ayan. So, this can destroy the ozone molecule for a long time. So, since the climate change and global warming at ozone depletion ay may direktang connection sa ating atmosphere, ano ba yung mga hakbang na dapat nating gawin para masolusyonan yung problemang mga nabanggit, Ma'am Annabel or Sir Ronnie?
So, kung hindi man natin maiwasan, at least, mabawasan natin kahit paano, di ba?
Yes.
Okay, number 1, avoid the consumption of gases dangerous to the ozone layer like CFCs. Tama, discuss natin yan. Number 2, minimize the use of car.
Ayan, isa sa mga experience namin yan ngayon, Sir Ronnie, na si Ma'am Rosel, na science teacher din, magkabaryo kasi kami. And we have the same place na pupuntahan din at saka same place din ng uuwian. So para makapag-minimize kami dyan sa
release ng dangerous gases.
Yes, ng carbon dioxide. Nagka-carpool na lang kami by scheduling.
Yes.
Bukod sa tipid na sa gas, less pollution pa yung na ibibigay namin sa mundo.
Okay,
ayan.
so magpo-promote tayo ng mga bisikleta.
Yan.
May mga nagbibisikleta na tayo mga ngayon.
Iba yung mga estudyante natin.
Do not use cleaning products that are harmful to the environment and to us. So
Yes.
ano pa, Sir Ryan?
Yes, that's right, Sir Ronnie. So, ang pang-apat nga ay yung buy local product. So, this can be done to avoid consuming food that has traveled long distances. So, hindi lang it could pwede na ding matulungan natin ang ating mga local farmers, di ba, ma'am? Lalo na pag siyempre bumibili tayo ng local products, and nami-minimize natin yung mga ginagamit na tawag dito, yung pagta-travel ng isang siyempre, yung sa transportation to export some of the products, ay nangangailangan din sila ng mga fuels, ma'am, na nagbe-burn. At pag dumami yon yung mga export natin, mas dumadami yung burning of fossil fuels. And another is to maintain air conditioners and refrigerators. Kasi nga ma'am, kung luma na ang conditioners natin and refrigerators, pwedeng mag-escape yung mga coolants or yung mga CFC na nagko-contribute to yun yung pag-init ng mundo natin. And mas marami pa yung nako-consume natin na electricity kasi luma na yung mga appliances natin.
Na yung machine.
Yes.
Okay, tama yan. Sabi nga nila, small things that we can do, we can contribute, can make
a
big difference. Tama, Sir Ryan?
Yes, sir. That's right. Yes, sir. Ayan. So, ngayon naman, sir, ay tatalakayin natin yung panghuli sa mga pagbabago na sa pangkalatang klima ng mundo. So, ito yung El Nino at La Nina. So, ano nga ba itong mga to? So, during an El Nino event, the surface waters in the Central and Eastern Pacific Ocean become significantly warmer than usual. So, whereas La Nina is caused by a build-up of cooler than normal waters in the tropical Pacific. So, La Nina is considered to be the counterpart to El Nino. Together, La Nina and El Nino are the cold and El Nino naman is warm. So, phases of the El Nino Southern Oscillation or yung ENSO. So, bagong lahat, saan nga ba galing yung El Nino tsaka El Nina, sir? So,
Ay, wait lang, Sir Ronnie. Baka pwedeng ibato natin yan sa mga learners natin.
Ay, oo.
Trivia
Sige,
to,
ma'am.
di ba? Ano kaya?
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, Spanish terms ng mga to, El Nino and La Nina. So, baka alam ng mga estudyante natin kung saan nga ba yung origin o anong ibig sabihin ng El Nino at saka La Nina. So, my dear learners, or our dear learners, pwede na tayong manghula.
Yan.
Ano ang El Nino? Anong kanyang ibig sabihin o yung kanyang translation in English? Because it's a Spanish term, as well as La Nina.
Ayan, patuloy tayong maghintay sa ating mga
Okay.
mag-aaral at medyo delay kasi tayo sa Facebook Live ng
Live.
mga 5 seconds to 10
mo,
seconds. Ayan.
pero alam mo yan, Sir Ryan, kung saan nang galing ito?
yes, ma'am, of
Okay.
course.
Siyempre.
Okay. So, I think ma'am, ipapahabol na nilang mamaya yung
Ipapahabol na
kanilang
lang?
mga sag. So, itong El Nino ma'am at saka La Nina kasi, actually ang El Nino una yung unang pinangalanan. So, way back 1600s, may mga
Tagal na.
yes ma'am, may mga fisherman tayo off coast to Peru. So, during Christmas Eve kasi or Christmas season, yung tubig sobrang init. Christmas season, malamig dapat yun, ma'am. So, pinangalanan nila yun na El Nino or small child or Spanish child.
Little child.
Not they relate to child Christ.
Kasi Pasko, di ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Christmas.
Pasko kasi yon. So, doon nanggaling yung word na El Nino. Yung La Nina naman, parang counterpart niya, ginawa namang small girl, kaya La Nina siya. Ayan. So, dito din ma'am, papasok din yung trade winds kasi ang alam natin sa mundo natin, may mga hangin, di ba sir, na iba't iba yung kanyang mga direction.
Yes, the trade winds, the prevailing winds.
Yan.
Kung di nalaman, the prevailing winds, karamihan ginagamit.
So, pag trade winds, sir, winds that steadily blow to east to the west, just north and south of the equator.
Damay tayo dito, Sir Ryan and Sir Ronnie, di ba? Kasi nasa tropics tayo.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so
Tingnan natin, para mas maintindihan natin yung pangyayari ng El Nino at La Nina, dapat intindihin natin ang non-El Nino conditions in the Pacific Ocean. Kapag non-El Nino conditions, ito yung sasabi natin normal condition.
Yes,
to,
sir.
These are normal condition na dapat ito ang mangyayari. Pag hindi ito nangyari, dyan papasok yung El Nino na tinatawag natin. So normally, strong trade winds, trade winds, ma'am, easterly winds para sila. Ma'am Annabelle, easterly winds.
Di ba sabi natin kanina, from west to east ba yun?
East to west siya, ma'am.
Yes, easterly
East to
winds.
west.
So, para sila, winds that steadily blows east to west, just north and south of the equator, blow westward across the Pacific region. So, titingnan natin yung unang araw. Itong kung facing kayo sa screen natin, yung nasa left, ay nasa right. Yung araw sa taas, pwede i-point mo sa Ryan.
Yung right natin, wait lang Sir Rory. Yung right natin, yun yung
Yan
section ng Pacific, andun yung Ecuador, Peru.
Yes, yan.
Sa western section naman, andito tayo sa Pilipinas. Left side ng kamay natin pag nakaharap tayo sa picture.
Yung nabilugan ni Sir Ryan, yan yung Asia. Tama?
Yes. Andiyan na Pilipinas.
Andiyan yung Pilipinas. Itong isa, yan yung Ecuador. So, ang tendency niya, dyan manggagaling Ma'am Annabel, tinutulak niya yung hangin na mainit papunta dito sa
Tinutulak ng trade
winds. Yes, ng trade winds yun. Mainit na hangin na tubig papunta dito sa west o sa Asia. O sa Asia tayo, papunta sa Asia. So, ang tendency, pag mainit, ma'am, magkakaroon
pag mainit ang
tubig,
low pressure area.
low pressure. Mag-evaporate at pag nag-evaporate magkakaroon ng
rainfall and
rainfall.
storm.
So kung umuulan sa kabila naman ay dry siya.
Yes,
Tama ma'am, mag-dry
Hindi
siya.
masyadong dry naman. Kasi normal lang siya.
So ang tendency, magtatanong na ba't anong mangyayari doon sa mainit na anong papalit doon sa mainit na tubig na nawala dito sa isang lugar? Diyan papasok na tawag nating upwelling. Yung pagtaas ng malamig na tubig, ma'am. So, upwelling in the coast of Ecuador, Peru, and Chile. This process is known as upwelling. So, Sir Ryan, ano ang kalagahan ng upwelling sa mga lugar na to?
Oh, yes, sir. So, sa upwelling kasi, sir, surface currents also play a role on vertical up and down movement of deep water mixing in the upper column. So, upwelling is the process of bringing deep water to the surface, and extremely important that it brings nutrient-rich water in the nutrient-deprived surface. Then, it's stimulating photosynthetic organisms and increase biodiversity. Kasi nga, sir, di ba, yung surface water pupunta siya sa west, ang tendency nun, yung water behind that is susundan niya, sir, di ba?
Yes.
And then from the bottom, sunod-sunod na yan.
Sunod siya, tataas yung malamig.
So yung mga nutrient-rich na tubig pupunta sa taas, kaya yan nag-i-stimulate siya ng biodiversity kasi
magsisilbi kasi siyang pagkain
ng mga
maliliit
marine
organisms
life doon sa lugar na yun.
Parang chain reaction yan, maliliit ng organisms, mga isdang maliliit, tapos yung malalaking isda that feed on the smaller fish would also be benefited.
Yes.
Ganyan kahalaga yung upwelling. Ganyan kahalaga yung prosesong yan. Yung normal, yung non-El Nino.
So, ibig sabihin yan, Sir Ryan, Sir Ronnie, maraming marine organisms gaya ng mga isda ang pakikinabangan dahil sa upwelling. Tama ba?
Yes, Ma'am Annabel.
Makakatulong ito syempre sa kabuhayan ng mga mangingisda dahil mas marami silang huli na nangangahulugan na mas mataas ang kanilang kita. At syempre nakakatulong din ito sa kalagayang pang-ekonomiya ng isang bansa. Di ba?
Yes, ma'am.
So pero yun ay nangyayari during non-El Nino phase
or normal condition, ma'am.
Neutral, normal condition ng ating ENSO or ENSO. Ano naman kaya ang maaring mangyari during El Nino phase ng so-called of the so-called ENSO? So let's look into an illustration to be explained by Sir Ronnie and Sir Ryan there.
Okay.
Sir Ryan?
Yes, ma'am. So nga, di ba kanina, ma'am, nakita natin yung normal condition is from east to west siya. So eventually kasi mangyayari doon is yung trade winds na yun is hihina. So ang mangyayari doon, ma'am, El Nino na siya, ma'am. Yes. So yung surface water, ma'am, or yung warm water na pumunta sa Southeast Asia, babalik siya or pupunta siya sa gitna. Ang eventually noon, ang mangyayari, magkakaroon ng tawag dito, yung magki-create na ng storm doon sa kung saan nasa yung surface or yung warm water. Eventually doon naman sa ating yung sa Southeast Asia, magiging dry na siya, di ba, ma'am?
Hindi kasi nakakarating yung warm water doon that
Yes.
can cause rain.
Okay, yun, kaya naman hindi siya nakakarating talaga. Mostly hindi siya nakakarating.
Ha?
Hindi siya nakakarating yung warm water sa kabila para mag-cause ng pag-ulan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ang tendency, kaya makikita natin sa picture, mas maraming ulan dito sa South America. Instead, sana na yung normal na mas maulan sa Southeast Asia, kagaya ng where Philippines can be found. Tapos, anong mangyayari din guys sa upwelling? Hihina ba?
Yes, ma'am. So, magiging baliktad naman, ma'am. Magda-down dwelling. Tama ba?
Not necessarily downwelling, sir, pero hindi siya, walang masyadong nutrients na akyat kasi wala namang masyadong tubig na naitulak pa kabila.
Yes, ma'am.
So, drought dito sa kabila, kawawa naman. Anong apektado dyan kung sakali lang? Sa Asia, pag meron tayong mga droughts, ganyan. Siyempre, apektado ang agriculture.
Yes, yung farmers natin, kawawa na naman sila.
Lalo na yung mga sa palayan.
Yes, ma'am. It would paralyze yung agriculture natin. Kasi water is the most important kasi pag sa agriculture.
Maliban dyan kahit mga industries natin kasi level of water would also be, ang tawag doon, minimized, parang ganyan, because of that one. Kaya ang tendency na ito, halos lahat ay affected. That's during El Nino.
Ayan, so kabaliktaran naman ang mangyayari sa atin as El Nino brings rain to South America. It brings drought to Indonesia and Australia and the other part of Asia. Tulad nga ng sabi kanina ni Sir Ryan, that agriculture which depend on water for irrigation is threatened. Ayan.
So ngayon tingnan naman natin kung paano nangyayari yung counterpart ng El Nino which is La Nina. Sir Ryan ulit and Sir Ronnie.
Yes, ma'am. So during La Nina naman, ma'am, the trade winds become stronger, resulting to more warm water pushed to the Western Pacific, Asia, and more upwellings in the East South America. This tends to lead to the drought in the southern US and heavy rains and flooding in the Western Pacific. Dito sa Pilipinas, sa ibang lugar sa Asia, nakakaranas tayo ng malalakas na ulan at pagbaha during La Nina. Yun yung severe floods, ma'am, caused by La Nina tend to reduce crop yields and increase food prices. This will in turn affect the livelihoods of those living in rural and urban areas, particularly those who are more vulnerable to poverty.
Okay, so emphasize lang natin Sir Ryan and Ma'am Annabelle. Doon sa El Nino, mahina ang trade winds. Dito naman, sa La Nina, sobrang lakas yung trade winds.
Ang tendency nito, yung consequence niya, pag mas malakas ang trade wind, mas maraming may tutulak na warm water to the west, kaya syempre mas maraming water mag-evaporate, which will cause more precipitation that will cause flooding eventually.
Okay,
Kaya hindi lang Pilipinas, actually Indonesia, mga karatid bansa natin sa tropics ay nakakaranas ng matinding ulan.
Okay, the learners, naintindihan nyo na kung gaano kahalaga ang trade winds. Ba't trade winds palagang binabanggit natin dito sa El Nino at La Nina?
Okay, actually, mayroon tayong additional info dito. Sabi rito, the latest forecast from WMO or the World Meteorological Organization that La Nina that has developed mid of 2021 indicate a moderate chance, which is about 65% of the current La Nina continuing during March to May 2022. So may 65% pala tayo dito na katuloy actually ng 2021 La Nina. That's why we experienced this.
Yes.
Yung ulan, yes.
Yung maulan natin.
April, diba?
Sabi nga natin, summer na, dapat summer wear, pero minsan nagja-jacket pa tayo.
Pero nasa tayo. Okay, so nakita natin ang mga iba't ibang dahilan sa araw na ito at epekto ng climate change. Nagkaroon tayo ng syempre ng karagdagang kaalaman sa iba't ibang climatic phenomena na nakakaapekto sa mundo gaya ng ano kaya yung mga yon, Ma'am Risa? We have
global warming,
Sir Ryan.
Ozone depletion, ma'am.
Ano pa, Sir Ronnie?
Climate change at El Nino at
La Nina.
Okay, so ngayon naman, ano kaya ang maaaring gawin para makatulong na masolusyonan kung hindi man, gaya ng sabi ni Sir Ronnie kanina, hindi man totally na, ang tawag doon, masolusyonan itong problema na to. Makatulong man lang tayo
at least
para
ma-lessen man
yes,
lang
ma-minimize yung effect.
Okay, nasa NDRR, ano?
MO na tayo.
Oo.
So para sa mga learners natin, okay, maaaring sabihin nila, estudyante pa lang naman ako. Pero gaya ng sabi din kanina, great small things can
marami pa rin silang maitulong kahit sa konting bagay man lang na kanilang gagawin, Ma'am Annabelle.
Okay,
Kapag itong mga konting bagay na to, pinagsama-sama natin, magiging malaki din ang magiging impact nila.
So para sa mga mag-aaral natin, meron tayong 35 million.
Yes, 35 million viewers.
Pero umunti na sila kanina. Okay, so your task at this time, hindi man tayo direktang gagawa or maaaring gawa tayo ng direct na we can actually contribute directly to this problem. But as a student, you will have to have an activity that could apply what you learned today from the lesson about climate change. So, para sa mga mag-aaral natin, you have a group activity here. Makikita natin sa screen. Plan for an output that can develop awareness about the impacts of climate change and how you can encourage the community to participate in activities that can help reduce greenhouse gases that cause climate change. Okay, mga anak, hindi nyo gagawin to isa-isa. You have to collaborate with your classmates of your choice. Okay? Pwedeng dyads, 2 kayo, pwedeng triads, a maximum siguro ng 5, Ma'am Riza.
Yes.
They can work on this in groups para naman hindi mahirap. And tingnan nga natin yung maaari nilang gawin, Sir Ryan. This can be in different creative forms like poster. It could also be poem, pero hindi na natin kailangan habaan o pwede na siguro yung 2 stanzas. A song lyric siguro, hindi rin masyadong mahaba, or any other ways na inclined kayo or skilled kayo.
Kung magaling silang kumanta,
Yeah.
pwedeng jingle.
Yeah, kung magaling silang kumanta, may instruments, pwede.
Yes.
Kung pwede nilang i-express ang sarili nila through dance, pwede rin.
Jingles,
diba?
yan.
Yung mga magaling kumanta, tapos yung isang yung isang kaklase nila marunong sa instrument,
Yeah.
pwede silang mag-collab.
Oo, kasi may mga marunong sa instruments na hindi
Yes.
masyadong magaling.
Yes, ma'am, kung magaling din sila sa mga pwede yung electronic poster, di ba, ma'am?
Yes,
Yes.
pwede.
Pero kung magaling sila
Mga
sa
teki-teki
computers.
natin, yes.
Yes.
Pwedeng contemporary dance.
Sa mga magagaling naman sa pagsayaw. So you have to work in small groups to accomplish this task. It can be done, nasabi ko na to kanina, in groups of 2 to 5. Your outputs, mga anak, could be submitted until next week. Pwedeng online na lang siguro.
Yes, so magmi-meet sila via online, ma'am.
Yes.
Pwede sila makipag-connect sa kanilang mga kagrupo via online since
Submission of outputs na next week yata, pero
Yes.
wala pa tayong official announcement, okay, for the schedule of the submission of outputs. But in case na hindi nyo matapos hanggang dun sa submission of outputs, you can still have kaya lang Semana Santa na next week. Okay,
Yes.
so hopefully you could finish that before the Holy Week. Next week. Okay, you can just submit your outputs to your respective science teachers. Okay, so to prepare for this, you discuss the following questions among the group members, yung napili nating mga kagrupo. This could serve as your guide for the content of whatever output you could think of. First, how was global climate change affected lives on Earth? Yan, that could be a guide question. Another one, how have the people tried to adapt to climate changes effects? And lastly, what can be done to help heal our planet from the negative impacts of climate change? Okay, so that's for your activity, mga anak.
ayan.
Ma'am Riza?
So napakaliwanag ng ating lesson ngayong umagang ito at pati yung kanilang magagawin. Paalala lang sa ating mga anak na do it virtually para
Yes.
safe pa rin tayo kahit na bumabalik na tayo sa new normal. Ayan.
Normal,
Sa normal. Ayan.
Nalilito
Bumabalik
na
na tayo sa normal. Kaya tulad din ng sabi natin kanina, follow health protocols pa rin para maiwasan ang pag-spread ng ating mga viruses.
At hindi na tayo bumalik sa
Yes.
mas mataas na level.
At hindi na tayo bumalik sa tinatawag nilang new normal ulit. Sana hindi
Sana
na.
hindi na.
Ayan.
Sana tuloy-tuloy na para mag-face-to-face na rin tayo.
Yes, para makita na natin yung ating mga estudyante ng harap-harapan at maturuan na natin sila ng face-to-face at makapasok na rin sila sa ating paaralan.
So,
Ayan.
Marisa, pasalamatan natin yung mga nakasama natin ngayong araw.
Ayan, dahil dyan, tayo nagpapasalamat sa ating mga nakasama ngayong araw na to, si Sir Ronnie, Sir Ryan, Ma'am Annabel, at saka sa ating behind the scene, sa ating technical team, we have Sir Joshel, Sir Mark, and also Sir Dennis. Ayan.
Makalimutan mo si Sir Dennis.
Ay, hindi ko yan makakalimutan, Ma'am Annabel. Ayan. Ayan, at saka sa ating mga patuloy pa rin na nakikinig na mga estudyante na hanggang ngayon talaga ay hanggang sa pinakadulo ng ating discussion ay talagang nakikinig. At saka sa mga nakikinig sa atin, hindi lang sa via Facebook Live, even Sa other applications, sa Kumu kasi nagla-live tayo, behind the scene. Kung gustong makita nating mga estudyante ang behind the scene natin, ayan, meron din tayo sa ibang application.
Okay, yun na lang siguro, Ma'am Riza. Dito na nagtatapos ang ating lesson in Science 9 for this week. Actually,
And for this
This is the
quarter,
last week, ano, ma'am?
last week for the third quarter.
So aabangan nila tayo next quarter, ano ma'am? Shift 2.
Shift 2.
So, Ronnie, baka may gusto ka pang sabihin.
Yes. Tapos na, ma'am.
So, maraming salamat mga anak. Antabayanan ninyo ang susunod na RBI lesson.
Yes, maraming salamat.
Physics, chemistry, earth science, biology, biochemistry, environmental science. These are some branches of science. Science is about a whole lot more than that. And to sum it up, we believe that science is the way of helping the brain grow in finding new knowledge and help us defeat our curiosity and how the world develops and works today. Science. This is your class, and this is science. And now, here is your host for the day,